we are going to build a worm farm. It is going to look like this, and we've got 3 layers here. Now, of course, we've got our old worm farm, or the one that I've already established, that comes in a tumbleweed worm cafe. So that has liquid tray and then 2 resting trays, and then also we have a feeder tray. This is going to be a little bit different. This one, we've got a liquid tray that's down the bottom. In the middle here, we have a resting tray, and then on the top here we have a feeder tray. So this is a really cheap and effective option for those of us who want to have a worm farm, but you might not want to completely throw down and, you know, spend some money on one of these worm cafes down the bottom here. So we're going to build this worm farm frugally. If you build this one and then you want to move it into this one, that's totally fine. For context, these 3 bins cost me $2 each. These are broccoli bins, so you can get them from your local green grocer, maybe your local supermarket if they're nice. All you need is a top. So this one right here has a top. That's what we need. And we need it to be securely fashioned, so if you can get those little grooves there and make sure that all the grooves in the top here are fine, that's good too. The other 2 layers, they don't need a lid because we're going to sit them on top of each other like so. So this is going to create a seal so the worms can't get out, pests can't get in. You might just need to keep something on top just to keep the lid down, just in case, you know, there's a weather event or there's a sneaky little possum, but this is all you need. We also have a couple of other things that you're going to need. Knife, or Stanley knife, screwdriver. This is going to be for poking some holes. I've also got some cardboard. We're going to use that. That's going to be part of our food base. It's been shredded up a little bit. It could be more shredded, like me. We're also going to need some shredded paper. I'm also going to suggest you get some old medium or dirt. This really isn't that much. It's just dried out old medium. It doesn't have to be like composty mix. If you've got some composty mix, great. I'm not going to use composty mix because I'm going to assume that you are going to be super frugal about this and you're going to want to use as little resources and money as possible. So I'm just going to use this old sort of dried up medium. I've also gone to the trouble of harvesting a whole bunch of worms from my other worm farms. I'll get some worms out of this one as well so you can see that process, because I know you guys like to have a little bit of a looky look. Anyway, so we've got some worms there ready to go because it's going to have a lot of that bacteria and microorganisms that come with a worm farm that help break everything down and get the worm farm established. I've also got some water because we're going to need to give everything a bit of a splashdown. We're not going to need heaps of water, just an itty bitty witty little bitty. I've also got this stuff. This is old, but this is frost cloth. You can use some of this frost cloth if you want, but you don't have to. But if, like me, you don't want all the worms to like filter down to the bottom, you can use the frost cloth. We'll talk about that soon. We just need to choose our layers. So I'm going to say that this one is going to be our base layer. This one is going to collect all of our liquid, and we need to make sure that there are no holes in the bottom. No holes. We don't need any holes. The liquid is going to be collected in here. We do, however, need to get some cross air happening through here. So, screwdriver. Something as simple as that. Something as simple as that. So I'm going to make a couple of holes. These are going to be up toward the top. Some simple ways for air to get through. Like that one there. I want to make sure they go all the way through. You want to be able to see your hand. Purely about airflow. Careful you don't stab yourself as well. I can't do lawsuits this month. You know what I mean? Get me up to like 500 million followers and then you can sue me. All right, so we've got our bottom layer done. This is our bottom tray. Water, liquid, that's what it's going to collect. Worm tea will be in there. We've got some aeration holes going through, which is super important. Every worm farm has aeration holes. Okay, cool. Let's do the next layer. This one. we need to put holes in the bottom. The reason we need to put holes in the bottom is because we need our worm tea to filter down to our bottom tray, okay? So, not only do we need to make some aeration holes in the top, because remember, aeration's super important. So we just want to put some aeration up the top here. Get rid of all that styrofoam. Aeration is done. Now we need to make holes in the bottom. It's really up to you how many holes you make. The more holes you make, the better drainage you're going to have. You can see all those. Probably can't see them there. Probably better to see them like this. Great. Right, if you want to use the frost cloth, you absolutely can. This would be the time that you use it. But what I would suggest, if you're really concerned about the worms burrowing all the way down and finding themselves in the liquid tray, I would suggest making like a little, I just cut myself. Good move. Right, so I'd suggest that you make some sort of like little lining that can go inside your worm farm. There's a little cut finger. Someone's not doing OH&S properly. You can do that. Honestly, you don't really need it, but if you want it, you can do it. There's also another way you can do this. You get your big bottom layer, you put your frost cloth over the top, you put your resting tray on top there. Perfectly fine. All that's going to do is the worms won't go all the way through. They'll just collect here, and then you can scoop them up and put them back in. But again, you don't really need to do this. This is just if you want to go the extra mile. And once again, this is frost cloth. It's frost cloth. This is the kind of cloth that you would have over like your vegetables during winter so they don't get frost. I just bought it because I thought that worms wouldn't be able to go through it. We're good. We're done pretty much. All we got to do is the last layer. That's going to fit on top like that. We of course need to make some ventilation holes. At the time I was living near the Footscray markets, but when I moved in there was also another market called the Little Saigon Market, and that's where you got everything super cheap. That was the market you wanted to go to. They were the good old days of Footscray. Anyway, now we're here. So this is the feeder tray. Our resting tray has some holes in the bottom for drainage. That's going to let all of that delicious liquid run off down into the liquid tray. We also need to put some holes in the bottom of this tray. We need to put some holes in here, but they can't just be little holes. They've actually got to be a bit bigger. So I've called in the skills of the apparatus that cut me. Great, cool. That's what it's going to look like. I'm just going to have to come by and clean all this up. So this is our feeder tray. This is where our worms are going to go. This is our feeder tray. This is where the worms are going to go when they're eating, and this is where food is going to go once the worm farm is established. We're not going to use this straight away, but the reason we've got these big holes is so worms can travel up and down. If you really want, you can stick some like sticks here, and when it goes in to the worm farm, when it all connects together, it'll be easier for the worms to climb up and down. That's your prerogative. If you want to go that hard, the worms won't have a problem getting up to eat food. If they want to eat food, they'll get to the food, so don't worry too much about that. So anyway, we've made that. We're not going to use this straight away though. We are going to put this on top. And there's one last thing we have to do with this. Just make a couple of holes just for the aeration. Come on over, baby. All right, let's get rid of these. I mean, you're not going to do this. You're going to get your worms from a worm farm cellar. There you go. We've got some stuff down here. Some happy boys. You're going to buy your worms from like Bunnings or a worm farmer. I guess that's the right way to put it. A worm farmer will have a whole bunch of worms. Yeah, there's heaps down here. Look at that. Great. We'll have some of those too. I already got some really big clumps from my other worm farms. But this is just, you know, for the visual for the visual fun, because I know that you guys like to have a bit of a looky-loo, especially at worms. Some people don't like it, which is cool. But I don't know how many worms I've got here. I've probably got, you know, maybe 1,000 or something like that. So this colony will probably do quite well, the one that we're building. But you don't need that many. I think you can, or maybe you can get 1,000 in a box, something like that. But anyway, there's the worms. I'm gonna leave that right the way it is. So you can check out all of these worms that are wriggling around on the top. We'll come back in a couple of minutes and we'll have a look at them, because you'll find that they're burrowed all the way down. So they don't like light. Now, as always, we're going to put that on top. Cool. Now we're gonna put everything together. Everything's gonna go in this tray. This is our sleeper tray, or a collecting tray. To do that, we're gonna need to mix a couple of things. So here's all of that old dirt, all that muddium. I'm just gonna splash it down with a bit of water, make it a bit muddy. We just want the consistency just to be a little bit damp. So we wanna get make sure there are no like dry bits. Moist consistency. That's gonna be great. We're also gonna need to add in some paper. Paper and cardboard are really great worm farm feed foods. They will absolutely eat the cardboard. And this is a great way for them to adapt to their new surroundings. So they can use this as worm farm bedding, but also they can eat it, which, you know, that's what we want. The worms probably won't eat straight away because they're acclimating to their new space. This is going to help them get comfortable, give them some bedding, but also give them some food. We're also just going to mix in a bit of shredded, chopped up cardboard. You know, that's pretty good. Pretty good starter for worm farm bedding. Great. Now, again, this is our resting tray. Our liquid tray is here. This is our resting tray. We're going to get the resting tray, something like that. And we're just going to fill up our resting tray with all of our worm farm bedding. So that's what it's going to look like. Happy with that? Old mate 2 cameras. Now, do you remember when we were talking about worms? This used to be full of little creepy crawlies on top. They've all creepy crawlied all the way down the bottom. So this is what I was saying in a previous video about harvesting worm castings. You want to get light onto your worms, because then they'll burrow down deeper. So spread them all out, give them a bit of space. Hopefully they'll get comfortable with their new surroundings. Cool. That's it. That's the worm farm pretty much done. All you need to do now, that's it. It's done. Thin. I gotta wash my hands, but this is basically it. I'll take this off. Now, you don't need to put that top layer on because we're not going to use it just yet. The worm farm's just getting established. So we can do that. But before we do that, I would suggest getting something like this, covering up with some newspaper or just some shredded paper. Again, this is just going to simulate the leaf litter of the forest floor. That'll do, whatever. We don't need it, but it's there. We can cover it up like this. That's a snug fit. And then we can just hang on to this for a later date, which is our feeder tray. So that one's up to you. I'm just gonna leave it like this. I've got the feeder tray here. We can use it another time. The idea, you wanna use a feeder tray when this tray is full and it's starting to get really full. Then we go to the feeder tray and we start putting food up here. When food goes in this one, the worms all travel up and they start eating from this tray. And then you can harvest from this tray. You don't swap the trays over like this worm farm though. This is always going to be the feeder tray because it's got all the holes in it. That one's always going to be the resting tray because it's got the holes for liquid drainage. And yeah, but again, you might not want to have this forever. It'll definitely last you a year or two. It's super frugal. So I think with the worms, maybe if you get, I don't know, 1,000 worms, it might cost you 40 bucks. And then these, $6. So you've made this worm farm for $46. You've got some dirt from the garden, some shredded paper, some cardboard, some water. All you need is a screwdriver and a Stanley knife. And Robert is your father's brother. Last thing we're probably going to want to do is just find somewhere for this to live. Just underneath the stairs over here. So it's well shaded. So if you remember from the last video, location is really important. You want it to be out of direct sunlight, somewhere where it's not going to get flooded or too hot or too cold. I think underneath there is just going to be great for the meanwhile. We're going to come back in a couple of weeks, maybe 3 or 4 weeks, and have a look inside and see how they're going. And it's going to take us somewhere between 6 to 8 weeks to get fully established. So we'll have a look halfway through at about the 3 or 4 week mark, and then we'll come back and we'll have a look around the sort of 8 week mark. And then, I don't know, we'll just follow it along and see how it goes, you know, as it becomes more and more established. So like just under here could be perfect. That's us. That's everything. Thanks so much for watching this far. Like, subscribe, comment, TikTok, Instagram, Facebook. Hopefully I've got a website up and moving by now, but it sounds like a lot of hard work.